Welcome back to another episode, number 29, Rise and Shine. Let's go. Shabbat Shalom to the home team. We're talking lost tribes and promised lands, the seed of Abraham. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. We out of here for this. Hey man, shout out to everybody been rocking with me. Shout out to new subs. Shout out to y'all, man. We ain't new to this. We true to this. All praises to the Most High. We just staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. Let's get it. You are now tapped in with Dragon Canoe. We are steadily rowing, and we are constantly flowing. All praise to the Most High. Halal. Let's get it. You know how we do. We got to get the vibes flowing, get the flute going. Let's go. Episode 29, Rise and Shine. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. We out of here for this one. For Hawa will give you abounding prosperity in your issue from the womb, the offspring of your cattle, and the produce of your soil in the land that Hawa swore to your fathers to assign to you. Hawa will open for you the bounteous store, the heavens, to provide rain for your land in season, and to bless all your undertakings. You will be creditor to many nations, but debtor to none. Hawa will make you the head, not the tail. You will always be at the top and never at the bottom. If only you obey and faithfully observe the commandments of your power, that I enjoin upon you this day, and do not deviate to the right or to the left from any of the commandments that I enjoin upon you this day, and turn to the worship of other gods with a little g. But if you do not obey your power to observe faithfully all the commandments and laws which I enjoin upon you this day, all these curses shall come upon you and take effect. Cursed shall you be in the city, and cursed shall you be in the country. Cursed shall you be your basket and your kneading bowl. Cursed shall be your issue from the womb, and your produce from the soil, the calving of your herd, and the lambing of your flock. Cursed shall you be in your comings, and cursed shall you be in your goings. Hawa will let loose against you calamity, panic, and frustration in all the enterprises you undertake, so that you shall soon be utterly wiped out because of your evil doing in forsaking me. Episode number 29, Rise and Shine. All praise the Most High. Let's get it. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. We're talking Section 107 of the Copyright Act, providing the statutory framework for determining whether something is a fair use. We're talking scholarship and research. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this earthquake. Y'all let me know. Leave a note in the comment box. Are you the Hebrews in Calais lose? Let's get it. Alright, we experienced some technical difficulties here. We back. Let's get it. The New Madrid earthquakes of 1811 and 1812. For Tecumseh stomps down every house in Tuckabatchee town. Let's get it. Madrid earthquakes. The earthquakes Crockett remembered as having torn to pieces his hunting grounds in 1812 were what we now call the New Madrid earthquakes, a series of powerful tremors from December 1811 to February 1812. Three large earthquakes and numerous others shook in an area centered on what is now the small jut of southeast Missouri, known as the Missouri Boot Hill, site of the New Madrid, a small Mississippi River trading port, named for the Spanish capital, but now pronounced defiantly and definitively New Madrid. New Madrid, let's get it. Around the epicenters of the 1811-12 quakes, the heart of the central continent where the present-day states of Missouri, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Illinois draw near each other. All right, we're talking Shawnees, we're talking Missouri, Tennessee. Let's get it. These earthquakes' effects were terrifyingly intense. The air filled with loud noise, foul stench, and mysterious flashes of light. Mysterious flashes of light, they say. Large areas were covered with rising warm water that threatened to drown many. The surface of the earth rolled in visible ground waves so powerful that sections of forest snapped off mid-trunk as the trees recoiled. It's going down in Prophet's town. The ground shaking caused the deep, soft soil of this vast floodplain region to separate like a runny egg casserole if you took it out of the oven and shook it side to side. The ground shook and the soft soil of the floodplain separated, causing the earthquake cracks that could run for almost a mile and could be anywhere from centimeters to many meters deep in areas near southeast Missouri and eastern Arkansas. Just under the surface, right? The tremendous pressure of the seismic movement. By February 1812, many people in North America were unsettlingly aware of a series of disruptions that had occurred somewhere along the edge of the growing American nation, they say. From Upper Canada, Georgia, Connecticut, many people over the previous 3 months had felt rocking and shaking, heard strange sounds, and witnessed the movement of objects and the alarm of animals and birds, or felt disturbing symptoms in their own bodies. For every house in Tuckabatchee town was thrown down. These puzzling and sometimes frightening events were big news in 1812. So, what are the explanations, they say? A key question about all this disruption, and for many people today, is what happened. The reports of flashing lights, bad smells, ominous noises, and spouts of liquefied sand. To a very large extent, we still do not know, they say. Or scattered the birds into the air until their shadows darkened the ground and spooked all the livestock. It was Tecumseh's doing. He did have supernatural powers. He had to, they say. It was a terrifying thought, but almost impossible to deny. First the comet, first the comet, then this, the ultimate ghost dance, a rattling of the whole cosmos, and the tremors kept on for weeks, as if the world might burst apart. Let's go. Is Tecumseh really a Hebrew prophet? Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. We're talking as if the world might burst apart. Several places on the Mississippi where the shocks were most severe. The earth was rent. It was rent. By one, it was burst asunder and instantaneously closed, leaving no traces whatever of the shock. By the other, it was rent, and an electric flash ran along the surface. An electric flash ran along the surface. We're talking about Tecumseh, the blazing comet, the New Madrid earthquake. Tecumseh Tenskwatawa predicts the solar eclipse in 1806. It says, tearing the earth to pieces in its progress. These last were generally attended with an explosion in streams of matter in a liquid state gushed from the gushed from the gaps which were left open when the shock subsided. It is also reported through the medium of some Indians from the country that the burning mountains up the Washita River had been rent to its base. This information I received from a settler at the hill, and his appearance was as to attach credit to his information. Let's go. We're just connecting the dots here. Remember, I'm just following the drinking gourd, man. Putting a puzzle together, man. You let me know what you think. Finally, the strange, tragic story of the encounter of white Europeans with darker skinned Aborigines. Darker skinned Aborigines has proved to be a convenient stick for angry critics of everything American to beat the corrupt, criminal, genocidal United States with. That encounter is offered as irrefutable evidence of our national depravity. Euro Americans versus Native Americans is to eschew polemics and tell the story as simply and directly as possible. Let's get it. It is a remarkably clear eyed piece of ethnography to modern eyes. Adair devotes the entire book to his argument that the American Indians were a lost tribe of Israel. A kink, Thomas Jefferson called this. American Indians were a lost tribe of Israel. Adair devotes the entire book to his argument. A kink, Thomas Jefferson called this. We're talking lost tribes with promised lands. The seed of Abraham. The encounter between the English colonists and the American Aborigines, to whom the English gave the general name of Indians because of the darkness of their skin, was one of the most dramatic meetings between different cultures in all of history. The Indians were divided into innumerable tribes that spoke some 500 different tongues and dialects. This was one of the facts about the Native Americans that led to the speculation of the colonists that the Indians might be the lost tribes of Israel, once a single people, but now cursed by Hua for their presumption in seeking to build the Tower of Babel and condemned to be divided and to speak in a multitude of strange tongues, constantly at war with each other. Let's get it. For blessed you will be in your comings and goings. But if you deviate from the left or to the right, you will be cursed in your comings and you will be cursed in your goings. Let's get it. We're just connecting the dots, right? We're talking Spanish exploration, Estevan, as depicted in a 19th century allegorical painting of Spanish troops and an American Indian, they say. An allegorical painting. Estevan, the more on more war, says courtesy of the Tuskegee University Archives, Alabama. Let's get it. For every house in Tuckabachie was stomped down. Estevan, as depicted in the 19th century allegorical painting. The African American experience in the American West began in 1528 when a Spanish exploring party shipwrecked off the Texas coast in the Gulf of Mexico. 4 survivors of that mishap wandered across Texas, the American Southwest, until they were rescued by Spanish soldiers in 1536. One of this quartet of conquistadors was an African slave named Estevanico, they say. Some historians have speculated that Estevanico, who was from northern Africa, was brown and Arab rather than black. Historians have speculated he was from northern Africa and Arab rather than black. Most scholars, however, have concluded that he was the latter, and of official Spanish records referred to him as a Negro. So what's really going on here, right? We're talking allegorical paintings speculations. What's really going on here? We're just connecting the dots, staying in check, searching for the Melchizedek. It says, the native peoples, this slave and his companions met during their 8-year ordeal, told them of the other tribes to the north and west of Texas. So somehow an African slave, they say, is tapped in with the native peoples who somehow, right, tells them of the other tribes to the north and west of Texas that were so wealthy that their cities' streets were paved with gold. Talking cities of gold. Intrigued by these stories, Spanish authorities in Mexico City sent Estevanico in 1539 to guide an expedition to find these fabled towns. The cities existed, but the gold did not, they say. Did the gold not exist? Moreover, the natives of these settlements killed Estevanico, ending what many historians eventually came to see as a significant journey of the first known so-called African to explore the American West. We're talking paintings, allegorical paintings. What's really going on here? Let's get it. Just connecting the dots. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. During the next 4 centuries, other African Americans visited or lived in what later became the western half of the United States. Some, like Estevanico, were slaves of Spanish officials, explorers, and settlers. We've already talked about this. Who are these so-called slaves? We're talking tribe. Tribe sold to Spanish officials to satisfy treaties with European Americans. A few were fur trappers and traders, right? As whites from the United States began gradually settling the western frontier, they too brought Americans of African ancestry, they say, with them as slaves or servants. Or was we already here? I don't know, man. Let me know what you think. These later travelers performed much of the work necessary for making pioneering expeditions successful, right? They cooked, herded cattle, nursed children, hunted, and performed a host of other required functions. Let's get it. We're talking the autobiography of James Jim Beckworth. Note the anglicized features when compared to the photograph in the preface. Let's get it. All right, we're talking allegorical paintings. Talking James Beckworth, these so-called Negroes in the American West that had all this knowledge of the Indians. Jim Beckworth, a fur trapper and mountain man. Beckworth first went to the West in the 1820s, adopted by the Crows, right? He became a war chief. And later in life, he served as an Army scout and discovered a pass used by travelers going to California through the Sierra Nevada mountains. So how does he discover a pass? Tapped in with the Crow Indians, so-called mountain man, right? It says not many black men rose to the level of legendary in the American West, but Jim Beckworth was an exception, considered an American hero, they say. Who is Jim Beckworth? A freed slave and the son of a white transplanted St. Louis blacksmith. It says he listened to the tales of French Canadian explorers who came down the Missouri and Mississippi rivers to trade. In 1824, he asked his father what he should do, and his father told him to follow his heart. He joined an expedition out of St. Louis as a wrangler and manservant, and somehow he becomes tapped in with these Indians, right? We have to ask the question, a freed slave of what? We're talking copper-colored cons found here in America, right? We're talking routes of the Underground Railroad, a so-called freed slave. We're talking every house in Tuckabashie is stomped down. We're just following the drinking gourd here. Why is it all stemming from this central location? What's going on here? All right, what's going on here? We're talking routes of the Underground Railroad. It says, This lithographic stereo view card is typical of those found in living rooms during the late 1800s. It says it includes yet another artist's depiction of the Moor Estevanico, the so-called Moor Estevanico Estevan, who accompanied the Cabeza de Vaca expedition in 1540. So take a look at this. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm looking at here. We're talking the Moor Estevanico, who accompanied the Cabeza de Vaca expedition. Let's get it. We're connecting the dots here. What's going on here? The Cherokee, tucked away in their fastness of the Appalachians, were so-called far removed from the Nina Pinta and Santa Maria of Christopher Columbus. Says the tribe remained utterly unknown to Europeans until the iron-hearted Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto, who'd conquered the Incas with the ruthless Francisco Pizarro. So who are these Spanish, man? What's really going on here? Came plundering for gold in 1539. He crashed deep into the American wilderness to be first to come eye to eye with the distant relations he termed savages. Distant relations. You picking up on that? Distant relations. We're talking a more on more war. He termed savages. Contact, this is now termed. It was a moment that might have demonstrated the fundamental unity of all mankind, but did not. Let's get it. We're connecting the dots. The history and records of the Israelites must be chiefly considered regarding the times before they formed a nationality and became sedentary. Nearly contemporaneous with that nationality was the general use of writing, and it would appear that the era of King David would be a demarcating line. The Indians never have arriving at this stage, they say, though some of them, as the Iroquois and Muskogee, right, we're talking red sticks, were far on the road to it, and never having acquired a written language, their stage at the Columbian discovery, right, we're talking Spanish conquistadors, King David, the Indians, right, they make the connection. Columbian discovery shows a degree of development similar to that of the Israelite patriarchal period. Let's go. It says, with the small armada, De Soto landed in present-day Tampa Bay on the greater landmass he called La Florida with 500 soldiers, all in pointed cabasset helmets that gleamed in the bright sun. They splashed down into an Edenic bay. An Edenic bay. Just pick up on the language. An Edenic bay. Let's get it. So again, what's really going on here? We're talking Tuckabatchee Town, for every house was stomped down. We're talking routes of the Underground Railroad. We're talking it's going down in Prophet's Town. Got the Chickasaws, the Cherokees, the Choctaws, the Creeks, the Shawnees, right? What's really going on here? They land in Florida, Tampa, Florida, and Edenic Bay. Let's get it, Spanish Florida. It says De Soto knew or thought he knew enough metallurgy to hunt for gold in the mountains. So they're hunting for gold in the mountains, right? Along the way, he rounded up as bearers or 100 tamims or Indian slaves. I'm talking routes of the Underground Railroad, Indian slaves who'd been too terrified to resist the devil's army of men in metal. De Soto's men fastened heavy collars to the Indians' necks, chained their ankles, and forced them at gunpoint to carry his burdens. If they tried to flee, he unleashed a pack of fierce dogs to rip them apart. Come on, man. What's really going on here? Indian slaves fastened heavy collars to the Indians' necks and chained their ankles, forced to carry his burdens. Come on now, we just connecting the dots here. It was here the Lady of Kofetacheki employed the oldest of ruses. As the gentleman from Elvis, one of the 5 chronicles of De Soto's journey, explained. She stepped aside, saying that she had to attend to her necessities. Thus, she deceived them and hid herself. Although she sought, she could not be found. She'd taken 4 attendants with her and a slave who may have been her lover. What's really going on here? Says De Soto must have gone a little soft on her, for he did not unleash his dogs to tear her apart. It says the lady had vanished. This was the deepest De Soto penetrated into the Cherokee country. None of the 5 chroniclers of his journey makes any note of the tribe, which may have been difficult for them to distinguish from any other, they say. And so the greatest army that had ever assembled in North America, we're talking the Spanish Armada, let's get it, man. Contact, man. Come on, the distant relations, they turned savages. They put chains around their ankles, man. We're talking a more on more war. What's really going on here? Take a look at this one. We're going to connect the dots. Don't worry, we're going to get into it. This heroic figure stood at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition. 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, Columbian in Chicago. It says, 30 years after emancipation, changes were slowly beginning to take place in the depiction of African Americans in larger societies. So take a look at this. What's really going on here? Right. Got the horse and buggy people. You know what I mean? The Indian slaves, right? They wrap chains around their ankles, right? The new depiction of African American man, the freed slave, they call him. Take a look at this, man. Talking old world, what's going on here? It says the freed slave, a statue created for the Columbian Exposition in 1892 in St. Louis. What's really going on here? The image of a new black man set free from bondage. The image of a new black man set free from bondage, an allegorical image. What's really going on here, man? Let me know what you think. It says life into legend after nearly 20 years of intermittent work. Sculptor Ferdinand Petrick completed a larger-than-life, heroically proportioned statue called the Dying Tecumseh. It resides at the Smithsonian American Art Museum. The statue was entirely imaginary in its composition, they say. Any resemblance to the mortal Shawnee leader is coincidental. In 1866, right? We're talking 1866, 1893, 1892, these Columbian expositions, what's really going on? Museum goers were enjoying to keep their hands off it. Let's go. It says, while Christianity was taking hold of the mixed blood elite, eager to get ahead in the world, the old beliefs still captivated everyone else. Many were disturbed by the modern ideas and seemed to be rushing into the nation like an ill wind. Practically everyone shook with the frightening news of the Cherokee couple who had taken shelter in an abandoned Georgia cabin, and there had seen a vision that lit up the nation. One night they'd been jolted awake by thunder and lightning, but when they went to the window, they found, instead of rain falling from the heavy clouds, hundreds of Indians in war paint galloping across the night sky on black horses, all to the terrible pounding of unseen drums. And these Indians were shouting themselves hoarse, saying that the Great Spirit was enraged because the Cherokee had let the whites overrun their country and change its ways. For if you depart from the left or the right of these commandments I enjoin upon you this day, let's go, man. So began the Ghost Dance movement. It drew on loss and longing to rouse the bygone spirit of the Cherokee to cast off all things white. It had many seers, but one above all, a one-eyed Shawnee dubbed the Prophet. It's going down in Prophet Town. His blind eye revealed an inward vision of a land cleansed of marauding whites and restored as the paradise of the Great Spirit. Are we talking Presters here? The Ridge met him in September 1811 at the Creek capital, Tuckabashie, Alabama, on the banks of the Tallapoosa. Shout out to the Gump. Well, to the south, in Georgia, the Ridge had arrived quietly with his men when Tecumseh marched in like a Roman emperor, they say, of a grand procession of 40 foot soldiers, all of them dressed for war. Silver bands about the biceps, circles of fire around the eyes, their hair plaited in long black strands. Tecumseh himself bore a pair of tall crane feathers, one white, one a dazzling vermilion. We're talking 1811. Tecumseh marches into Tuckabatchee like a Roman emperor. All the tribes, it seemed, were spoiling for war, all with a common refrain: it was time to rise up. This was 1812, the year for which the famous war with Britain was named, although it actually ran through early 1815, so we're talking the War of 1812, the New Madrid earthquakes that ran through 1815. We're talking New Madrid earthquakes, 1815. A portion of the Indian delegation that visited Governor General George Prevost Drummond in 1814, right? We're talking copper-colored cons found here. Says Tecumseh's sister Tecumseh is believed to be the second woman from the left. Let's go. Copper-colored tribes. Says at the great gathering with Tecumseh, speaker after speaker arose to address the council. Tecumseh himself was among the last, and his message was apocalyptic. As one startled white attendee summarized it later: kill the old chief's friends to peace. Kill the cattle, the hogs, and fowls. Do not work. Destroy the wheels and looms. Throw away your plows and everything used by the Americans. Sing the song of the Indians. Shake your war clubs. You will frighten the Americans. The ground will become a bog and mire to them. We're talking New Madrid earthquakes of 1812. The ground will become a bog and mire to them. I will be with you, my Shawnees. Lift up the war club with your right hand. Be strong, and I will come and show you how to use it. Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. Tecumseh's popping off. It says Tecumseh and Pushmataha. In 1811, Tecumseh spoke to a large group of Chickasaw and Choctaw in Mississippi. He urged them to join the confederacy he was trying to create. Talking 1811. Nobody wants to hear Tecumseh. He's going on his world tour, trying to get everybody to tribe up. He says, we meet tonight in solemn council, not to debate whether we have been wronged or injured, but to decide how to avenge ourselves, how to defend our country and maintain our ancient independence. It says, where are the Pequot and the Narragansett, the Mohawk and the Poconet, and other powerful tribes of our people? They have vanished before the avarice and oppression of the white man. So it will be with you. You too will be driven from your native land as leaves are driven from the winter storms. And let's go to popping off. Sleep no longer, O Choctaws and Chickasaws. Are we not being for ancient liberty? How long will it be before they tie us to a post and whip us and make us work for them in their fields? We're just following the drinking gourd here. To tie us to a post and whip us and make us work for them in their fields. Shall we wait for that moment, or shall we die fighting? Shall we give up our homes? War or extermination is now our only choice. Tecumseh on his Malcolm X vibe. We got Pushmataha on the Martin King vibe. When Tecumseh had finished speaking, the Choctaw chief Pushmataha stepped forward. He had made treaties with the whites, and he resented Tecumseh's criticism of him and other government chiefs, he calls them. He did not intend to go into battle against the Americans. He believed the Americans were stronger than the Indians, right? Check out Little Turtle, saying once a war leader eventually decided that signing treaties and accepting government handouts was better than fighting. Tecumseh despised his former allies and other government chiefs. So Tecumseh's trying to tribe up, but you got Little Turtle and Push Mataha, you know, trying to sign treaties, right? It says Shawnee arrogance. The Shawnees arrogated to themselves a superiority over the whites as well as over other tribes of Indians, we ask. Are the Shawnee descendant of Abraham? Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. At the convention held at Fort Wayne in 1803, one of their principal men set forth their views in the following manner. One of the Shawnees popped off. He says, "The master of life, who himself was an Indian, made the Shawnees before any other of the human race, and they sprang from his brain. He gave all the knowledge he himself possessed, and placed them upon the great island, and all the other red people are descended from the Shawnees. All these inferior races of men he made white, and placed them beyond the stinking lake, the Atlantic Ocean." All right, we're talking contact. Every all other red people are descended from the Shawnees, they say. The master of life, who was himself an Indian, he says, made the Shawnees before any others, and placed all the inferior races beyond the stinking lake. The Shawnees for many ages continued to be masters of the continent, using the knowledge they had received from the Great Spirit in such a manner as to be pleasing to him. Come on, connect the dots here. And secure their own happiness. In that great length of time, however, they became corrupt, and the Master of Life told them that he would take away from them the knowledge which they possessed and give it to the white people to be restored by a return to good principles. Come on. For if you go to the left or the right from these commandments which I enjoin upon you this day, come on, man, in such a manner as to be pleasing to the Great Spirit, until they became corrupt. At first they took it for a great bird, but they soon found it to be a monstrous canoe. We're talking contact, right? Filled with the very people who had got the knowledge which belonged to the Shawnees. It says, after these white people had landed, they were not content with having the knowledge which belonged to the Shawnees, but they usurped their land also. They pretended, indeed, to have purchased these lands, but the very goods they gave for them were mere the property of the Indians than of the whites, because the knowledge which enabled them to manufacture these goods actually belonged to the Shawnees. The Shawnees have been duped, but these things will soon have an end. The Master of Life is about to restore to the Shawnees their knowledge and their rights, and he will trample the long knives under his feet. Perhaps no Indians were superior to the Shawnees in courage and prowess. The history of the Ohio Valley abounds in instances of their daring. The greatest Shawnee was Tecumseh. Tecumseh, the prophet, was also a remarkable man, by many believed to have been the moving spirit behind the schemes of Tecumseh. Right, talking Tenskwatawa, right? I mean, you let me know what you think. We're talking paintings, Tenskwatawa, as painted by J.O. Lewis during a visit to Detroit in 1824. We're talking copper-colored cons found here. It says the witch hunts also outraged William Henry Harrison. Harrison sent a message to the Delaware, a warning and a challenge. Harrison trying to pop off on Tenskwatawa. Who is the pretended prophet who dares to speak in the name of the great creator? Examine him. He's scoffing at the prophet that he should be selected to convey to you the orders of your power. Demand of him some proofs. If your power has employed him, he has doubtless authorized him to perform some miracles. If he is really a prophet, ask of him to cause the sun to stand still, the moon to alter its course, or the dead to rise from their graves. If he does these things, you may then believe that he has been sent by your power. So he challenged Tenskwatawa. He's popping off Tenskwatawa. But Harrison's scornful challenge backfired. The prophet announced that he would make the sun stand still. In 1806, Tenskwatawa predicts a solar eclipse. The sun was high in the sky. Then Tenskwatawa raised his hand. Darkness slowly covered the sun. The summer day turned as gray as dusk. The prophet had indeed stopped the sun. Let's go, man. The Battle of Tippecanoe, in which the prophet promised that the enemy's bullets would be soft as rain. Let's go. Tenskwatawa, the prophet. It says the Shawnee were one of the most important of the Algonquian tribes. Their most noted chief was the great Tecumseh. The meaning of the name is doubtful, they say. We're talking Crouching Panther. Blazing Comet. Said it is commonly interpreted Southerners from the Algonquian Shawan, the South, right? We're talking Shaw. Knees, we're talking Tuckabatchee. Creeks, we're talking Cherokees, but everyone descended from the Shawnees, they say. It says they have 13 clans. It says the clan of the individual being indicated by his name. They are organized also into 4 divisions or bands, independent allied tribes, Piqua, Maquoshic, Kispako, and Shalakatha. To the second of these belong the hereditary priesthood. Come on now, we're talking presters here. Hereditary priesthood. The Shawanoe were very wandering and warlike habit. Their earliest historical habitat appears to have been in the middle of the Savannah River. But before the end of the 17th century, we find a portion of them, apparently the main body, occupying the basin of the Cumberland River. We're talking Tennessee and the adjacent region of Kentucky. About the year 1692, most of those remaining in South Carolina moved northward and settled upon the Delaware River. Right? We're talking the Shawnees tapped in with the Cherokees and the Tuckabatchee Creeks in Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, South Carolina, Arkansas, Missouri, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Near Augusta, Georgia, from which they were finally driven by the Cherokees, a part of the Shawanoe joined the Creek Confederacy. It says they occupied a separate town and retained their distinct language. Those settled upon the Cumberland and were afterward expelled by the Cherokee and Chickasaw. We're talking war amongst the tribes. And retired to the upper waters of the Ohio under the protection of the Delaware. So the Delaware be holding it down for the Shawnees. The Cherokees and the Chickasaws be popping off. The Creeks be here and there. It says the Delaware giving them refuge to the original immigrants from South Carolina, they say. It says with the advance of white settlements, the 2 tribes moved westward into Ohio, the Shawanoe fixing themselves in the vicinity of the present Piqua and Shalakatha about the year 1750. It says Pontiac's War of the Revolution and the War of 1812. It says in 1793, a considerable band settled in Missouri upon lands granted by the Spanish government. So what's really going on here? Talk about the War of 1812, the New Madrid earthquakes. For every house in Tuckabatchee was stomped down. It says eventually about 1/2 being incorporated with the Cherokees, man. So let's talk about it. We're talking Choctaws, Chickasaws, Cherokees, Creeks. For every house in Tuckabatchee town was stomped down. We're talking Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Kaskaskia, St. Louis. Let's go. Fort Detroit. Let's go. When an immense Creek great warrior dared question Tecumseh about the wisdom of such a holy war, Tecumseh fairly streaked with fury and declared the great warrior must have white blood to be so cowardly. If anyone doubted him, Tecumseh shrieked that he would stamp the earth so hard that he would level every house in Tuckabatchee. He would level every house in Tuckabatchee. For the immense Creek great warrior dared question Tecumseh. We're talking every house in Tuckabatchee was stormed down. It says the American president, the equivocal James Madison, said Tecumseh's rhetoric had done nothing for the Cherokee delegation. It says we turned away our ears and never listened a moment to the orations of the enemies of our father. But then something alarming happened. On December 16th, when the ridge was back at Oostanala, the earth did indeed shake, delivering itself of deep rumblings that rattled even the ridge's house. Deep rumblings, the earth indeed did shake, scattered the birds into the air, and spooked all the livestock. It was Tecumseh's doing. He did have supernatural powers. He had to. It was a terrifying thought, but almost impossible to deny. First the comet, then this, the ultimate ghost dance, a rattling of the whole cosmos. And the tremors kept on for weeks, as if the world might burst apart. Let's go. Episode number 29. Rise and shine. Another one for the tribe. All praise the most high. It's the conflict. Really a Hebrew prophet. Are the Shawnee, the descendants of Abraham? Let me know what you think. Leave a note in the comments. What are the connections here? What's really going on? Let me know what you think. We out of here for this one. Number 29. Rise and shine.